Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today I want to talk some more about portfolios, and this is a conversation that we've been building on over a couple episodes right now, and if you haven't seen the other shows, I'm happy to link them in the notes below or at the end of this show. And if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to leave a comment below, because this is the kind of thing with certain episodes that I like to build on over the show, and I really want to cater to what you guys feel your needs are and what your questions are. And we've talked about building an online portfolio and, how best to present your work and get yourself across. And that's what I want to look at today, is how we do that with websites. And I'm going to use a couple examples from photographers that I found. And while there are some wonderful photography portfolios out there, I'm going to use some people that are non-photographers too as examples. And I have two people picked out that are exceptional illustrators who do a lot of typography type of work. And this is really important, because learning how anybody who does visual communication is able to present themselves, put their work out there, and put personality into that, I think is really important. So without further ado, let's go over the computer and let's have a look at some portfolio websites. When you're putting together work for your portfolio, there are 2 points that are really important to consider through this whole process that everything boils down to. The first point is, what is the work that you're showing? And so is this, are you putting your best foot forward? Is it well presented? Are you showing the kinds of projects and images you want to do? I think it's really easy. Some photographers slip into showing everything they've ever done, and some of the older work, things you want to continue to try to get work doing. And so that's really important. What are you doing, and is that work well represented? The second thing that's really important to consider is who is your ideal audience? And so if you're doing commercial photography, it's going to be a potential client. That's who you want to see your website, who you want to speak to, and you want them to hire you. So whether this is a art director, whether this is an editor, a graphic designer, whatever that is. If you're doing fine art, your audience is probably most likely people who would want to buy prints or work with you on that level, a gallery, something like that. So it's really important to remember those 2 points, your work and who you're speaking to. And remember that when you do a portfolio, anything that you add in there into that mix potentially comes between that point of connection. And so, for instance, if your photography website is over-designed, if your portfolio is hard to navigate, those things start making, they start clouding that connection between, the point of your work and the point of who you want to be seeing it. So it's really important to remember. So I've got a couple websites I want to show you of people that I think that are communicating really well through their portfolios. I have 2 photographers and I have 2 people who are not photographers, because I think it's really important to also look outside of our niche of photography and see what other people are doing really successfully that really works. So this first website I pulled up is a gentleman named Paul Nicklin, and Paul is a fantastic photographer. Shoots for National Geographic, specializes in wildlife photography, and has some absolutely fantastic work. And go through this portfolio. I will link to everything in the show notes, so you can go click on these and go explore them yourself. But the copy's good. The images are brilliant. First of all, he's an extremely talented photographer. But second of all, his work shows through. You look at the design of this website. It's very simple. It's very elegant. It's very classy looking, and it's easy to navigate. If I want to just go look at thumbnails, I click on this. And so, when you go through here, you can select thumbnails, look at images, they're categorized, everything is very clean and clear. And I think that this is just a great example of a really well done portfolio who happens to be done by an extremely good photographer. One thing I want to show you in here, just as a design point, is that a lot of work that he does, you see a lot of underwater work and a lot of outdoor work. And so the color blue is fairly prominent. You see a lot of blues and, deep blues in the ocean shots. You see kind of some turquoise sometimes, and the lighter blues with the sky and ice and things of that nature. And what I want to point out is, look at the color scheme on this website. There's only one color. The background is white. The links are all in various shades of gray here, but you see this blue that he's chosen. So it's a really nice complement to a common theme that you see a lot in the images that are presented in this website. Even the social icons are blue, and it makes a nice call out that keeps that layout really clean. The only thing that is blue is the logo, the branding, the social icons, and then when I've actually selected on a link, if I want to see Spirit Bear, for instance, or Grizzly Bear, any of these, that's when it changes. So, it doesn't match every shot, but it is a predominant color, and it does match with that color scheme. This is just a really nice design point that's really well done. So check out Paul Nicklin. He's fabulous. fabulous. Next guy I want to show you, this is another photographer. This is my dear friend Wade Griffith. If you used to listen to the Photography Show, which was the audio podcast I did a while back, I did that with my friend Wade. He was my partner on that. I've known Wade for years. Great guy, fantastic photographer, and I know Wade really well, so I know a little behind the scenes of his thinking. And I think this is worth sharing with you because a common question I get is, for people who specialize in several different styles, how do you represent that in a website without being too confusing? What I like about the way Wade has run his business, and he's been freelancing for 6 or 7 years now, is that he tends to get called the most on architectural work. And he has a really unique style with that, where you see everything in like these really neat, perfect perspectives with really striking angles of view. And he just does a fabulous job with this. And architecture, he does other work too, but architecture is the thing that he's really working on building his business around. And this is smart because pick one thing at a time and go with it. The navigation, if you look at the top under architecture, you can see all the different kinds of architecture that he does, be it retail, arts and entertainment, residential, you name it. You click on one of these links and you can go through the images. I know that Wade likes his images really big. He likes them really clean. He likes to show through. He's using, live books for this, but, it's very simple. It's got gray backgrounds that make the colors pop a little bit, and he does a really nice job on this. He puts his other stuff under other work, and as you can see, he's no slouch in this. If I click on portraits, he's got some big name people in here. So if you know anything about Southwest Philanthropy, T. Boone Pickens is a big name. If you're a football fan, Jason Witten. So anyway, really interesting work. Wade is very good, and I think this is well presented because there is something specific that he's focusing on the bread and butter for his business, and he puts that up front, makes it easy to find, and that's key. So really important. I want to switch over and I want to look now at two artists who are visual artists, but they are not photographers. And I think they do some interesting things on their websites that I don't see a lot of photographers doing. And I think you can learn from this too. So the first person up is a woman who's a friend of mine on social media, and I've followed her work for years. I think very highly of Mary Kate Mcdevitt. She does excellent work. She is an illustrator. She specializes in hand-drawn type and typography, and her work is fun, it's interesting, it's beautiful, and she's got a great website. It's very simple, it's clean, and I think it would be really tempting if you were an illustrator to want to start illustrating the website and get too involved, and she did not. She held back there, and it lets the work speak, and I think that's really important. You click through her portfolio. The other thing Mary Kate is really good at is her copy's well written. It's interesting, it's fun, it makes the work look interesting. I think that artists in general, a lot of times we have trouble talking about our work. And so that's something you really want to try and strive for, is being able to explain your work clearly. There's not a lot of copy, but what is here, it makes sense, it's clear, and it shows you who the client was. And here's a poster, there's a link to purchase it if you want. The other thing that's cool is if I scroll down in her portfolio, is she includes some behind the scenes photographs of what's going on. So here's some sketches, so you can see some of the thought process that went through this. And I know this is probably a little bit different for somebody who's an illustrator versus somebody who's a photographer, but showing the behind the scenes, some production shots, and even an image of her brought in behind, this translucent vellum-esque thing that's up. This shows personality. It connects her with her work. It shows her personality, and it shows the thought process that goes in here. And I can see just by, what that does for your brand when you have those kinds of images on the website, that, it starts putting a personality around it. And I think that's really important to do for people who, are artists who, you're not a big company, but you have something that you're really good at that you specialize in. So navigation is clean, the portfolio is clean, her work is fantastic, which certainly helps. And she's got links to Etsy, and she's got some stuff you can buy on the website, and it's very clear, easy to deal with, and she did a fantastic job on this website. So that's Mary Kate. Another person I want to look at is Jessica Hish. Jessica is also a designer, and she deals with typography, but she does quite a different style than what Mary Kate does. But either way, we're looking at somebody else who's a visual designer, and again, we're seeing a lot of the personality come through. And one thing I want to share you about Jessica's site that I think it's such a subtle thing, and she obviously put a lot of thought and time into this, but one thing I really like is this. I'm going to zoom in. If you look at the domain name up here where it says Jessica Hish, she went for a .is, which, it's another top-level domain, but she kind of plays on that. So if I click on like work, for instance, Jessica Hish is working is what you get out of that. Same thing if I click on thoughts, jessicahish.is/thinking thoughts. Anyway, it's kind of clever. Most people probably won't notice that, but I appreciate the fact that she went to that level of detail on her website. I think it's clever and it's interesting. And again, a really good job talking about her work, talking about the work that she's done, talking about things she's interested in. And again, the personality comes through. And this is what I think both these artists have done very well, is personifying their brand. And I think that's really important because, I always tell people, brands are for cattle, not human beings. So coming up with a logo for a person is a really tricky thing to do because you don't want to look like a big Titan company. You want to look like yourself, and you want to make that interesting. And I think that's important to do. I'd like to see more photographers do this, and don't go overboard with it, but just present it in a nice, beautiful way. And I think that's something, that's really important. For further inspiration, I'm going to point you in two directions here. I want to bring your attention to two different publications. So if you're interested in doing commercial work, there's a magazine called Communication Arts. And Communication Arts, go find it in the bookstore because you're going to get way more out of the magazine than you are their website, because they're really set up to sell the subscriptions and the magazine. It's beautifully printed. The content is absolutely wonderful. And they do not only the magazine, but they do a series of annuals that come out every year that, are sort of like a competition. They, people submit work and they pick the best of the best. And CA has developed a reputation around that. It really does represent the best of the best. So go find their photography annual, go look at their magazine, look at the photographers they're featuring, because these are people who are really trending right now, who are kind of hot. They're doing wonderful work, and they're being successful. Google them, go look at their portfolios and see how they're presenting themselves. That's really important. Second publication I want to point you to, if you do fine art, is this one, which is Black and White magazine. And Black and White specializes in fine art. And what's interesting is their target audience is not photographers, surprisingly. It is collectors and people who buy photography. So when you get the magazine, thumb through it, and you're going to notice there's a lot of ads for galleries and places where you can go buy work and things that they have. And so this is speaking to the collecting world. And so if you're interested in fine art photography, I think this is a good connection. And again, go grab a magazine because they're going to go more in depth than the website does. It's linked up in the show notes. And special thanks to everybody I featured on here. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you all in the next episode. Later.